Let's start off with Apple, because Apple shares are pulling back more than 1%. What's your take on this ruling? We were talking to Dan Ives earlier. He said no change to his price target. He didn't seem to be very worried, but I would think just this potentially changes the thesis of Apple's being more of a service company and potentially billions of dollars being taken away from the top line.
Dan is a permeable about everything. I don't know if he ever worries, but I think the reality is that Apple has long been a walled garden that has long been very contentious. The interesting thing is Android's not really, and it doesn't seem to make a huge difference for them. So, even if Apple agreed to this ruling and made some changes, I don't know how quickly we would see sort of a shift. I think that's a big question. And I think that the more important point, though, is it seems like between Apple and Alphabet, it's clear that these judges are losing patience with big tech and want to be listened to, even if the administration isn't coming down as hard on them. And so, I think that this is almost more of a test case of what does big tech do in this Trump administration with these topics than it is, will we have a non-walled garden app store, and will that change very much about our behaviors because we're all on the same 5 apps anyway?
Sarah, I want to ask you again. Dan Ives, no change to this price target. He says he believes the narrative for Apple stays the same, at least long term. There may be some short term disruptions, but there still are those tariff concerns. We know that the White House and China are having conversations, according to Chinese state media. But with the tariff concerns, the reduction in potential revenue here, even though it's important to note Apple will appeal, does this significantly change your view on Apple and the investability of this company?
So I think that the tariff thing is a totally different monster, right? That will be a real problem for them. Even if they could manufacture and assemble in the U.S., they certainly need to get their raw materials for the batteries, for everything else from all over the world, largely China. And that's not going to go away. And so they will need to figure something out if the tariffs stay sort of where the president initially indicated. And so that, I think, is a headwind. But the reality is that's a headwind for everybody in hardware, for everybody who has batteries. And so because of that, I think if that entire market sort of falls a bit, you're just going to see Apple fall in line with them, not be disproportionately impacted. So no, I don't think that even the tariffs make a huge foundational change, because at the end of the day, you drop your phone into a pool, into your sink, you need a new phone. You're probably going to buy an Apple if you already had Apple.
All right, let's get some of these other stories. Meta actually raising its CapEx guidance again, well above what the street was looking for. What do you make of that decision? I was saying earlier, we're obviously past the year of efficiency. Important to note, then we saw Alphabet. They said that they were capacity constrained. They weren't demand constrained. They were capacity constrained. What do you make of this move from Meta?
Yeah, I mean, we've been hearing capacity constrained from a lot of these big companies recently. Mark likes to spend money. Mark loves to spend money. The street loves it when he's more efficient and just sort of sticks to his knitting, sticks to what works well. But I think that when he feels like he has the leverage, he likes to chase new ideas, new opportunities. It seems like what he's chasing here is a little bit more AI and a little bit less metaverse. So I bet that the street is going to like that more. And I think it also does make some sense here, because we spend so much time, much like on Alphabet, we spend so much time on Meta's products, WhatsApp and Instagram and Facebook, telling it what we want, what we're looking for, what we're curious about. And so it makes sense that they say, hey, we think we can build AI products because we're not scraping data. You are giving us your data in real time, and we know exactly kind of how you're thinking, how you're feeling. Why wouldn't we build products around that? Because it does seem like the consumer has an appetite for smart AI in certain places in their lives.
I want to get to Microsoft as well. What did you make of their results? I don't know if you watched this interview with Robert Smith from Equity Partners on our air. He talked to Scott Wapner not too long ago, about a week or so ago. He said basically the companies that really lean into agentic AI, they're going to be the winners, and the companies that don't, they're just going to cease to exist. When we're talking about agentic AI, of course, cloud infrastructure is very important. What do you make of this result from Microsoft when it comes to their Azure business and the competition when it comes to hyperscalers?
I think that as there's more scale needed, the companies that are these big incumbents in cloud will benefit, and certainly Microsoft is one of them. The interesting thing for me when you look at the chart, right, is that when you pull out that big ramp up that happened wasn't really about Azure and AI cloud usage. It was largely tied to OpenAI. And so I think as the OpenAI kind of relationship, we're seeing reporting that maybe that Sam and Satya aren't as close anymore. There's some tension in there. OpenAI is not sort of the only chatbot in the room. Agentic AI, which moves away from that sort of chat interface more to sort of AI in the background, is a big piece of it that they haven't quite, wrapped their hands around yet. So I think the question is, as that sort of exposure becomes a little bit less exciting, is Microsoft and its Azure business strong enough in AI to sort of keep the stock price up, or does it float down a little bit because some of it was kind of AI hype? And Microsoft's a company that will be around probably long after all the rest of us have left the earth. But the reality is that they have benefited massively from this AI hype, and it's not clear that Azure cloud usage hype is going to have the same bump.